Every patient data business in the world starts with a moment like this one. One person walks into one clinic on one ordinary Tuesday, and something happens to them. We'll call it a single event, and we're going to follow it, and only it, through this whole course. By the end, this one glowing dot will have become codes, claims, a de-identified record, and finally a product someone pays for. But right now, it's just a thing that happened. Watch where it goes. Here's the first idea that will save you months of wrong assumptions. You might picture health data as something carefully collected in order to be studied, like a clinical trial. It isn't. The overwhelming majority is a byproduct, exhaust thrown off by the machinery of running a health system. A visit gets documented so the clinic keeps a record. A claim gets filed so somebody gets paid. The data exists to run the business, not to answer your question. So it was never shaped for you. Every dataset you will ever touch is a little bit accidental, and that is the most important thing about it. So let's open up that one visit and see what it actually produces. The visit itself becomes clinical data, the EHR record, diagnoses, notes, vitals, everything the clinician saw and did. To get paid, the clinic files claims, and the pharmacy that fills the prescription generates its own dispense data. The blood draw becomes lab data, a scan becomes imaging, a cheek swab, if it happens, becomes genomics. Away from the clinic, the same person throws off patient-generated data, wearables, app check-ins, patient-reported outcomes, plus the social and economic context we call SDOH, and at the edges, disease registries that track specific conditions, and death data, the one record that closes every story. 10 data types from one visit. And none of them were built to connect to the others, which is the problem the rest of this course solves. One cut runs through that whole taxonomy, and it decides how hard your life is going to be. On one side, structured data, rows and columns, codes, lab values, dates, things a computer reads without thinking, claims, most lab results, medication codes, clean, queryable, the part you can actually join. On the other side, unstructured data, the clinical note, the radiology image, the pathology report, meaning trapped in language and pixels. That's where most of the clinical truth actually lives, and it's why every health AI company eventually has to read text and images, not just query tables. Here's the builder's skill this chapter is really about. Every data type answers some questions and is structurally blind to others. Match the question to the source, or you build on sand. Claims know exactly what was billed and when. They are almost blind to whether the patient actually got better. EHR data knows what one health system saw clinically and goes dark the moment that patient gets care somewhere else. Wearables know what happens between visits, which is most of a life. They know nothing about diagnosis or treatment. You don't need the perfect data set. You need the one whose blind spots don't matter for your question. One last distinction, because you'll hear it in every meeting. All that exhaust we just mapped, the raw material, has a name, real-world data, RWD. It becomes real-world evidence, RWE, only after you've cleaned it, linked it, and asked a rigorous question of it. Regulators, including the FDA, now use real-world evidence to help support decisions about medical products. That is exactly why this raw material is worth money. Data is the ore, evidence is the metal, everything in between is the work, and the next 7 chapters are that work.